welcome to the day after, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors, on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, because Charlie, they Longhorns won 38-24. Means we have some more football to talk about. Means we have another edition of the day after, and we'll probably have one to start the new year. And of course, got to make sure we bring in our guy James for the day after. And we already got some great comments going. Roaster, thank you for joining as always. Alan McGada, John Morales. One more, absolutely, but got to go with this one from AR. I think it starts there. Jaden Blue, two real big explosive plays that really turned the tides of the game, Coach.
Yeah. Look, I love the runs. But one thing I loved about him most is going through traffic. He had the ball with two hands. Like, he had it covered up going through traffic. It's like, okay, Blue, you learned your lesson, right? Like, we all know he can take any carry to the house from pretty much anywhere with his speed and explosiveness. But, man, like, he had wide open lanes to run through. He hit those gaps and covered the ball, and it was off to the races. As they say, strike up the band. So I was happy to see him maybe build some confidence within himself and gain the trust of coaches back, and now you got a 1-2 punch, so that's a dangerous duo going into the playoffs.
It was one of those things, James, where Texas needed to control the football a little bit, especially at the end, because Klubnik was playing extremely well. That was probably his game of the year. Elevated his performance at the biggest moments, and Jaden Blue in the run game really helped to. I don't want to say neutralize that, but kept that distance, kept that cushion for the Longhorns.
Yeah, I mean, that was what neutralized the game in the end. Jaden Blue iced the game with that 77-yard touchdown run, which was just really awesome to watch. But Klubnik, yeah, he really poured his heart out onto the field. That was probably, in my opinion, his best performance, because it was the most notable opponent that he really balled out against. He gave Texas a run for their money. Like, that was by far, I think, the best offense. I said it on Wednesday. You guys said Georgia, you and Justin, but I think in the end that was the best offense we played. Secondary got a run for their money there for a second, kind of showed that they were human. But the running game, that's how good Texas can be when they have a fully sound offensive attack. When they're not running for 2.7 yards a carry, when you've got two backs going for over 100 yards. And as we were talking about, Joe, we always saw at the press conference when Jaden was holding on to those footballs after some of the fumbling issues, clearly helped. That's what Jaden Blue can be. He is our most dynamic back with CJ Baxter out, and he showed it. I mean, that was, I think, the longest run we've had from scrimmage on the season. That was really fun to watch, just Texas being able to impose their will. And Clemson's D-line is no slouch, so that was impressive to just watch them get to the second level and then have some of those long runs. All in all, great performance on offense, particularly on the running game. We got to talk about that when you have 200-yard rushers for the first time on the season.
Yeah, that was the most rushing yards I think that Clemson's allowed this year. Only time they've gone above, even gotten close to 300. I've been saying this for a while. As long as we don't have a third piece of data, it's going to hold true. I think the running game problem is Georgia, because Clemson is a good defensive line. TJ Parker, Woods. There's some real big dudes on that Clemson defensive line, and that's a position they recruit really well. And there's other good defensive lines in the SEC. We talked about Kentucky.
Right.
We talked about Florida, Texas A&M. And even throughout all those defensive lines, like, Texas has been able to run the ball, find success on all of them except Georgia. Man, Gerald, you're really doubting a Longhorn team that's been there in the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. Unfortunately, we don't know if Ole Miss would do anything like that, because the SEC didn't schedule them and they lost 3 games.
Hey, Joe, in true form to their coach, they're just arguing in hypotheticals, Ole Miss fans.
Yeah, exactly. The playoff success has eluded them, but still, I mean, we've seen fronts the quality of Ole Miss. I feel like Texas has run well on those fronts, on all of them but Georgia. And unless Georgia, gets past Notre Dame, gets past Penn State, probably, it's going to be a while till Texas sees that part of the that bugaboo again. Coach, what'd you make of the fact that all that continued, the running success, keeping 10 years pretty clean when they had the left guard playing center, the backup guard, the backup right tackle, all those different guys in the game, and they still were able to find the success needed. What does that say about the depth that Texas was able to find on the offensive line?
It says a lot. It says a few things, right? Like I know Eric used to say at the beginning of the season, like Texas too deep is good enough to be in the top 25, right? And now you're getting to see those guys play. It talks about the development of Cal Flood and what he does with the offensive line. You know, we were always writing reports in the fall camp about guys cross training, learning different positions, having to go in when needed, mix and matching. Like this is when it pays off. They have experience playing with each other when they have to go in, and so. Those guys having to step up and play really big minutes in a playoff game shows the development, the coaching, and them understanding the game plan and what they need to do and execute. So that the moment's not too big for them. And I love to see it, right? Because those are going to be the guys you count on next year. If they can play in a high-stakes game like this year, imagine how good they're going to be next year. So I don't want to see people go down, but the fact that we got guys who can come in and step up and not really miss a beat, it really says a lot.
James, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the testament to the depth that we've been looking for in Austin for so long. And I think the commentators, the team, Dusty Dvorak and the other guy's name,
Dave Pasch, yeah.
Dave Pasch. They were talking about how they basically didn't miss a beat. I mean, Jake Majors going down, hate to see it on a little bit of a dirty hit there. And then, yeah, you had to, I'm trying to think. You had to bring in Gooseby. Who was the other backup that came in?
Cole Hudson went to guard so Hayden Connor could play center.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So we have two backups on the line, and you basically have your best rushing performance of the year, as we were just talking about. So that's really a culture thing, I think, and having the twos ready at all times. And that's what Sark really preaches, is like making sure those guys know when you create a competitive locker room like that, where guys are fighting for every rep in the twos and threes, they are preparing like they are a one every week. And you see that when someone like Gooseby slides in and you basically don't lose any production in those couple games. Against Georgia, a little dicey, but so was everyone against Georgia, as we've talked about. But Gooseby, another great performance. Nice seeing Hudson get in. O-line, all in all, looks great. Testament to Kyle Flood and just the program as a whole. And when you got the dudes, it does make it a lot easier. Like Texas is one of the physically biggest teams in the country. That's something I've noticed just going to a few practices for the first time. It's been really cool just to see how big Texas has gotten up front. And it shows with the rushing attack not missing it.
Coach, go ahead. I'm sorry. Did you have anything else, James?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, losing a leader like Majors, I feel like in years past that would crush a Texas offensive line. And now they're just able to, like, boom, on to the next guy. All right, let's go.
Coach, one of the things I think we noticed, and I can pull up the snap count while you're going through your answer, but they had two tight ends on the field a lot last night. Gunnar Helm was out there, and Juan Davis was out there a heck of a whole lot. I wonder what maybe the schematic impetus for that was, maybe preventing Clemson from getting into certain defensive looks. But that meant that Juan Davis and Gunnar Helm really had to answer the bell blocking-wise. And as we saw on those plays, blocks by 81 and 85 really helped to spring them loose on the big runs.
Yeah, it kept Clemson to kind of play base defense. I thought their edges were particularly kind of small, right? It allowed Texas they couldn't set the edge versus Texas. Like you talk about Georgia, their defensive ends are huge. They're bigger. They can set the edge. They play really fundamentally sound. Clemson didn't have the size and strength to kind of match up and set the edge versus Texas. So you can kind of go heavy personnel, force them to put more guys in, but their guys are not big enough, right? And so you kind of see the tight ends kind of dominate, the offensive tackles dominate. So smart by Sark, right? Because you're bigger than those guys. So it's kind of like math. 1 + 1 = 2. Like your big guys versus their small guys, and just run at them. And I think Texas did that for most of the night, which was very smart.
What did you think of the receivers during the course of that game, James? They had some good plays, earned some pass interferences. Matthew Golden, they picked on Avion Carter, who really I thought was probably going to be the difference maker for that defense. He was maybe in the wrong way for Clemson, but what did you make of the receivers as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the story of the year where Helm and Golden have been the most reliable guys at times. Helm getting 6 grabs, putting up almost 80 yards. He got that big touchdown. Golden had that one big catch that, Quinn threw a good ball. If he'd thrown it maybe a little more ahead of him, some people were commenting on that. It could have been a walk-in touchdown. But, yeah, I mean, the receiver play has just been – it's been kind of receiver by committee as we expected, with Moore and Wingo getting in. Moore had a costly drop. That was tough. That led to
it was more than a drop.
Yeah, so that – I mean, the receivers is kind of what we expected going into the season with when you lose AD and Worthy, right? I think starting out, they looked a lot better than we anticipated. We thought, they're probably not going to have a drop. But in the end, there is a bit of a drop-off from last year, especially when Isaiah Bond is out. But, yeah, I think all in all, they had a solid game. But, it hasn't been an elite room on the year. And that kind of shows with Helm almost leading the team in receiving, which I don't think anybody would have predicted that going into the season. But most of the guys did their jobs aside from that one drop. A couple miscommunications on Wingo and some routes. But I think the running game was the real story. And hopefully, if Texas can lean on that, you can go with B- receiver play and still, make a championship run.
There was one notable wide receiver thing that I noticed, and I mentioned this, I think, maybe on Twitter. After that fourth down stop, Texas is on its own 2. They try to make a run, don't get many yards, and then Quinn Ewers sees one-on-one coverage on the near side of the field. And it's not on, Isaiah Bond, who didn't even play. It's not on Matthew Golden. It's not on DeAndre Moore. It's on a true freshman in Ryan Wingo. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those things where you walk up to the line of scrimmage, you're an experienced quarterback, you look, see one guy on your one guy, and you're like, don't care where it is on the field, you're going to take that risk. And as odd as it sounds, inside your own 5 is I don't want to say a common place where that happens, but it's probably in the playbook a little bit more often than maybe in some other parts of the field, because you either get a big play, you get out of the shadow of your own goalpost, mm-hmm. or you get Avion Carter with another pass interference. And the fact that, think last year, Sark trusted Quinn and A.D. Mitchell at Alabama to make that same play. This time he trusts Quinn and Ryan Wingo, a true freshman at home in a winner-go-home game, to do that. Gets the interference. Wingo almost caught it. Which was impressive. Gets out of the shadow of the own goalpost, mm-hmm. helps him take about 6 minutes off the clock, sets up Clemson to have to score 14 points in like under 2 minutes, and really was one of the keys of the game. So there was a lot to be desired from the receivers, obviously, but there are still some signs that they're making good plays. Right. We'll get to Quinn, and then we'll obviously get to the defense in a second. Anything else from the offensive perspective that stood out to y'all?
I think losing momentum when Clemson started to come back and kind of gearing back up, because it's hard. Once you start losing momentum a little bit, it's like, okay, man, they're coming back. Do we run the ball? Do you have a little self-doubt? Like, is the run going to work? You can notice this just in any game. And so the fact that they went right back to the run, to the outside zone, and went to the house with it, it just shows a lot about just what they're built on the inside, man. It says a lot about the team. Like, back against the wall, they got momentum. All right, enough time, enough playing. Let's put the women and children to bed and go score and put the game away. Like, literally, it's like Joe Kane. Like, it's time to go, and that's what I felt like they did. So it's really hard to do.
Red zone was a thing that stuck out to me. 4 for 5, 3 touchdowns, 1 field goal, one. They didn't get an opportunity going for it on 4th down. And that kind of coincides with the run game for the most part, just success there, being able to bully Clemson in the first half like they did. We'll get to Quinn Ewers and the quarterbacks of it all in the Texas defense in just a second. But first, a word from Academy Sports and Outdoors.
This is the start of something fun, kind that's best had outdoors, where family gathers and adventure awaits. The good tidings that make for even better times. And with the right stuff at the right price, the most wonderful time of year happens here. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Have fun out there.
Thank you to Academy. James will have a little bit of info about some cool stuff we're doing with Academy later. real quick. Gooseby going to be a star. Yeah, that one is that's going to be a fun position to track over the next couple of years, and as a result of Gooseby doing well. But let's talk a little bit about Quinn Ewers. Obviously, someone who is just under the microscope at this point. Had a fantastic game. I think he wasn't asked to do a whole lot, James, but what he was asked to do, he did really well.
Yeah, I mean, I believe he started 7 of 7 or 8 of 8. Like, he started out hot. It was nice to see him make a few more reads, push the ball upfield. And like we talked about a few minutes ago, his only mistake was being, a dropped pass from DeAndre Moore leading to an INT. So that was the best I think we've seen Quinn play since, possibly the Florida game and a complete game. The second half, things got a little tighter there. And he didn't really need to do much thanks to the running game. But, yeah, that rope he threw to Gunnar Helm was amazing. All in all, I think Quinn played a solid game. Like, his stats might not have wowed you like Klubnik's did, but that's because Quinn doesn't have to do as much when he's on the better team. He's not and that's also his game is not scrambling and creating like Klubnik was having to do. But the O-line held up well. And when the run game gives you a balanced attack, Quinn can pick his spots, and he's an accurate passer. And it showed he was hitting most of his passes. They only had to throw it, 24 times in comparison to, Clemson having to rely on that 43 times. So that was kind of like on a good start game because it's more of an NFL style system. 200 yards passing, minimal turnovers. That's a great game. That's what you need in a balanced rushing attack. Quinn for the most part didn't really make any of those boneheaded decisions like we saw a couple of against Georgia in the SEC title. So all in all, I'd give that game probably B+, A-. That was great to see Quinn bounce back like that. And like Joe's been saying, he has been under a microscope and probably gotten the most constructive criticism of any quarterback in the country right now. So great for Quinn, and it was great for the team to have that running game backing him up.
I think this is an interesting comment. Guys, I know this is negative after a good win, but Quinn is basically a game manager at this point. We won't win a natty if we need special quarterback play. Must play Arch. Klubnik way better. Let's go backwards. Klubnik played a lot better. He played better in that game. I do agree with that. Did not have the better team. Did not lead Clemson to a win. They put it all on him. Played hero ball. Didn't get it done. Must play Arch. They did. And he fumbled the ball on a critical fourth down. So they're doing that, and they won't win a national championship if they need special quarterback play. I agree with that. They need to run the football successfully, and as we've seen, whenever they put Quinn in these situations where he has to, manage the football 40, 50 times or 50 times, I can think back. It's been the most recent Georgia game. It's been Oklahoma State last year, which obviously a little bit different. Washington last year, and then Oklahoma last year. Like, it's not been successful. So I don't think any of this is really all that off, but I don't think that's negative. It's just kind of where we are with this offense at this juncture. And in every offense needs balance, and that's basically what we're trying to talk about, Coach.
Yeah, look, I think, I don't know if you guys mentioned it. Some other people have been talking about like elite quarterback play or bus driver. Like, it's okay to be a game manager. Didn't J.J. McCarthy just win with Michigan? Pretty much been a game manager. Look at Stetson Bennett at Georgia, game manager, right? As long as you got good defense and you have a running game, hey, you got a chance to win. And that's what really matters. You don't ask Quinn to go out there and throw the ball 40, 50 times a game. He doesn't need to. That's okay. That's why you got so many other five-star kids on the field playing. Like, you don't have to have, Tom Brady out there throwing to a bunch of no-names. Like, it's okay. I think people need to actually understand and accept that, like, hey, this is who we are as a team, and that's okay. We're still winning. We're 12-2. We're still in the playoffs headed towards our goals. So it's okay. We don't need an elite quarterback. We need everybody else to step up their play and be elite around it.
It'd be nice, but we have 14 games of data at this point.
Yeah. It's all, yeah.
Yeah. That good point by Coach. I've heard very few people actually make that comparison to J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, when they would have a great game, would sometimes throw 17 times. He'd be 11 of 17 for like 149 yards, a TD, 40 yards rushing. And if you go back to last year, Michigan's run, they had a game where they ran it, 31 straight times against Penn State. So, I mean, Texas, has the team now, right, where you can just have Quinn play a 2-touchdown game, 23 pass attempts, somewhere in that mid-20s, and just run the ball well, right? So this was a team we expected to have C.J. Baxter on. That unfortunately didn't happen, before the season. And they're still where they need to be with all their goals in front of them. Who has a better roster than Texas right now? They're the only people in their league are Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon, and that are in the thing that you're going to say, okay, this team can match Texas in terms of dudes, athletes they have up front, all that, right? So, I mean, Quinn doesn't have to do a ton, and that's a good thing. Klubnik probably wishes he didn't have to throw it 43 times and get beat up and was running around, has a dirty jersey. Ideally, we don't. When you put Quinn in a spot where he's getting roughed up against Georgia, it doesn't work out. As you guys have been saying, we don't want him throwing 43 times. That's typically not a strong suit. I think Quinn is very similar to Carson Beck. When you have to throw first 40 times and your guys aren't helping him out, it's not going to be a good result. And the reality is, what quarterbacks can do that right now? Like Cam Ward, I mean, there's very few that are able to do it
Exactly.
without any crutch, any running game. 2 yards a carry. I have news for you. 2.7 yards a carry. No quarterback in the country is going to have a good game when there's 2.7 yards a carry, except maybe Cam Ward and Shadur sometimes. That's about it.
And I guess we can introduce this, and I think we're all, I don't want to say tired of it, but there's some fatigue. There's some reasonable agreement. Quinn was better last year. Arch can run and throw, better chance to win with Arch. We will see better than Clemson. Okay, I'm going to go backwards again. Why do we already believe, have it as faith that there's a better chance to win with Arch when his best performances were against UTSA, ULM, and Mississippi State?
He threw some picks against ULM that were questionable.
He struggled heavily against Georgia, and granted, that's not an easy spot to be put in for anybody.
Right.
And we have coaches who are paid $10 million a year and then some to get this decision right, see him every day at practice, and then think, you know what, I'm still going to roll out 3. Like the idea, and I know, and I think we've mentioned this a lot, like everybody's like, oh, well, they did it with Tua. They did it with Hurts. Like the thing with Tua and Hurts is they were legit splitting reps at practice. That I don't think that's the case with what's going on with Quinn and Arch. I think Quinn is getting the first team reps because he's a starting quarterback. Mm-hmm. And Clay, to the point you kind of made earlier, you can play Arch. He can run and throw. They finally had him drop back to pass in that package earlier during the Clemson game. Like there are opportunities for him to do that. Yeah. But at this point, you just have to think that the coaches are seeing what they want to see. And I do kind of agree with one of the other topics from C. Gaddis there. But overall, to kind of steer out of the skid and go back towards what Quinn did, like he hit deep passes. Haven't seen that a lot. Like you mentioned, James, maybe it wasn't a walk-in touchdown like it should have been, but he hit some deep passes, made a lot of really good calls. And I'm glad Joey Austin brought this up. The touchdown runs were audibles called by Quinn. Would Arch? We don't know. We don't know that for sure, but what we do know is that Quinn made those audibles and helped Texas get into the right play call. Anything else on quarterback, or do we want to start talking about a defense that needed some help from the offense?
I'll just say this. People maximize the one. Everybody talks about Quinn, what he doesn't do or what he does. They look at the one play on 4th down where he throws the ball behind Golden, and then they maximize that. It's like, oh, there he is again messing up. But they discount everything else he had done up until that point. I think people just focus on just the small things so much, like they don't see the big picture of the game, right? And so if people could actually just take a step back and look, like complete game, the big picture, every quarterback misses throws. It happens. So don't maximize the small things or mistakes that people make, because it's a ton of them by everybody on the field.
And one other thing, I mean, you saw Steve Sarkisian go up when Quinn was doing his post-game interview and give him a high five and stuff like that. Like he wants Quinn to succeed, of course, but there's a real like trust there. So let's move on to the defense. I think we got to start with the goal line stand. That has been a calling card for Texas, and aside from Trevor Etienne getting in the end zone, Texas A&M was not able to get into the end zone on 4th and short. Clemson had a couple tries on 3rd and 4th and short, and the Longhorns made sure, thanks to Barron Sorrell, who had a great game, Bill Norton, who stepped up, and Jermaine Lole, James, the Texas defense held strong again.
Yeah, I mean, that was really cool to see. Like Clemson pushed back in the second half, and I think that was sort of the first time that they felt a little bit on their back heels, like, whoa, all right, people can pass on us, because there was the stat that I didn't even realize that Texas had only given up 4 touchdowns passing on the season before that. And Klubnik had 3, right? So he dang near had as many as they had given up on the whole year. So I think that just shows the resilience of the culture. They didn't get down like, all right, Clemson's within 1 score, and then that Jaden Blue run, and they're right back where they just were on another 4th down. And they try running it into that front, which is probably the silliest thing you can do. I don't know if they've watched the A&M tape. That was one of the
especially right after they put Anthony Hill in a blender on that touchdown play.
Exactly.
And yeah, so then that was cool to see Big Bill Norton getting up there. That was another transfer guy making an impact. That was great. Like, that just shows the front. Bill Norton doesn't get a ton of praise or even as many snaps as some of the other guys. And yeah, he comes up huge when it matters most. So that was really cool to watch. And it just shows how big and physical this Texas front is. That Clemson could not run the ball against us. And I think you're going to be hard pressed to find anybody that can, aside from, ETN. Georgia just kind of seems to be the kryptonite. But yeah, that was great performance. All credit to the front. Secondary, a little dicey. They were picking on Manny Muhammad a little bit there. But in the end, it was perfect that Michael Taft iced the game with that hit. He had kind of a quiet night too, Jade as well. But they did their job against a great quarterback, and probably the best quarterback, most dynamic for sure, that we've faced all year. So all in all, solid performance. Probably a B performance, maybe the weakest on the year, but still got the job done.
Statistically, it was. Like, I know yards only count for so much. Points are what really matters. But that was their first 400-yard game they gave up. And Coach, this from Victor Santiago, it kind of seemed – I didn't really have this viewpoint live just because I'm working on a lot of different things. But from the TV copy, and I saw a little bit of all 22 earlier today, like, it looked like back end was a little bit out of sorts. But in addition, they kept going and attacking number 5 and finding success.
Yeah, for the first game, like all season, we talked and praised about the communication in secondary. And for the first game, it seemed like they were just not on the same page whatsoever. It's like everybody was trying to do too much instead of doing their job. If you got curl flat, play curl flat. Don't jump and take the other route. But looking at Manny, man, I don't know. I thought, who are you going to throw at, Gil? I mean, you going to throw at Barron, the Thorpe Award winner? Like, you got to throw at somebody. I would say this, though. I mean, I think everybody's tried it. Georgia's got guys have gotten separation from Manny. They kind of got open, even though they dropped the ball. Maybe Clemson saw something there and said, hey, we trust our guys in the matchup. But, they just had some success. I mean, but Klubnik put the ball in, like, a perfect spot, too, a lot of the times. They remind me, I'm not saying he's Michael Penix, but at sometimes, like, he had good coverage in the pocket and phase, and the ball would just drop right into the receiver's hands. It's like, gosh, And so I thought he lost a little bit of confidence, but they kept going at him. Somebody posted a clip of him on the goal line stop saying, like, hey, that drive was on me, my bad. So he recognized it himself, right? But yeah, of course, you got to throw at somebody. You're not going to throw at Barron.
Yeah, it seemed like there was some mixing and matching, at least late, because I saw Jade Barron playing a little bit more star. I saw Jelani McDonald out there and Gavin Holmes playing opposite of Manny Muhammad. So it was a little bit some mixing and matching late. The thing is, James, if we think about a little bit of this coverage, and I can go back to that first touchdown, which, hey, maybe there was a little bit of an offensive pass interference there, but these are the types of offenses that Texas saw in the Big 12 for so long. It's an air raid style. It's what propelled TCU to the national championship game a couple of years ago, that offense specifically, and there's still some effective stuff, and they were still able to – you got to give some credit to the play caller and the quarterback. There's stuff to clean up, but some of what Clemson did was just good scheming, good football.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's Lincoln Riley's brother, for those who don't know. That's Garrett Riley coaching the offense at Clemson, and Joe pointing out he was the 2022 offensive coordinator, right? Made Max Duggan a Heisman finalist. Max Duggan, no slight on the man's name, great college quarterback, but he's no longer in the NFL already, and that was just 2 years ago. So Garrett Riley has an ability to scheme guys open, And we talked about it on the Wednesday show, kind of previewing. When Clemson put in those young receivers, it totally revamped their offense. Like TJ Moore, Antonio Williams, Bryant Westco, and then you had Bremingstool. And Coach is not being hyperbolic by saying Michael Penix. That accuracy from Klubnik on that one throw to Bremingstool was like just.
Yeah, I thought that was going to get picked.
Yeah, and you realize why Klubnik and Ewers were 1A, 1B in that 2022 class, and then Ewers reclassified. So I really think this was a good kind of wake-up call because we played against bad offenses. Shout out Oklahoma. And now we're going to get the real deal. This kind of prepares you for Arizona State. That's another Big 12 team that can, run in, pass, kind of do some spread option stuff, and has the ability to put up points. And then I think that's a better preparation for something like Oregon. If we end up facing them in the future, that is probably a bit of a wake-up call for the secondary, and will give them some motivational fuel for a unit that hasn't really been tested in many months, it seems. So yeah, I think that was just kind of a good little reset game. Like, oh shoot, like we are still penetrable. Everyone's been praising us all season. And for a second there, we saw on that one drive, I can't remember who pointed it out in the group chat. There was Jade was arguing with someone else, and we saw them a little communication lapses. And it was the first time they looked like, oh, okay, like this is still, we're still just regular guys. We still got to execute. We got to make sure we know our assignments. That was a good test. Clemson, you can go look on the season. They're averaging, 35 points a game. Like this is a dang good offense, and Nick had a game of his life. So I think that was just a good test for Texas, and will really help for the future weeks to come. God willing, they advance.
Coach, anything on the secondary? Want to maybe check in on the linebackers and no, there wasn't much there. I saw somebody made a comment that Anthony Hill had 7 tackles, and of course, you like having guys stack up tackles. But Malik Muhammad had 5 tackles, and that's not always what you want from your field corner. That means he's got to make some plays on guys who are catching footballs. But it didn't seem like there was a whole lot. Leonga Lafau almost had that pick, but kind of a quiet game, and that's a position that these air raid offenses really try to put in under stress.
Yeah, I thought they put him in space against air raid type offenses. Like, you got to drop and get depth. Most people haven't been able to do that versus them, so they haven't had to cover as much. Only person that maybe that those underneath like that is Georgia when they dump it down to ETN and stuff like that. But other than that, like these linebackers, you got a lot of guys crossing. They got to pick up guys coming across, and they're not used to communicating because they haven't really had to all season, right? Either the rush gets there or the secondary handles it. So I thought they got kind of caught up in the RPO. But the screenplay by LaFau, I loved it. I thought Clemson was on like hold my beer. I saw Texas do it and let us try it. It's kind of like, oh my gosh. I wish you'd have picked it up, went to the house, but I thought the key play Anthony Hill made was on the third down screen. They almost turned that third and long into a first down. He chased him behind and pushed him out of bounds just in time because I thought they were going to have a drive there, but he saved it. He saved us.
Anything else on that, James? Or maybe we want to talk about the big guys in the – I hope his 88 is great is in the chat, but anything else on linebackers?
Yeah, I mean, LaFau play stood out to me. That was nice. It was, I think, quiet game was the best way to describe it for sure. So not really much else. Yeah, I mean, Michael Taff even only having 2 tackles. It was just kind of an off game, and that's what can happen when you face an air raid attack like that.
Hey, he had the important tackle, the one that clinched the game at the end. Before we keep on going with our show, got to give a little bit more love to Academy. Academy, this is the place. I know it is December 22nd, but if you want to make holiday memories with Academy Sports and Outdoors, heck, if you don't even have time to go into the store, you can even get it delivered to your car. I know we've had the conversation. Do you go right to hunting? Do you go left to the sports and shoes? That's a good one. Maybe we should consider going straight ahead, going through the clothes to the barbecue section. I don't know if people have thought about that one. But if you're looking for some last-minute Christmas gifts, head to Academy Sports and Outdoors. Camping, fishing, hunting. Get some Longhorn gear. I know they've got some more playoff stuff there. Golf, workout, basketball, all the stuff that you need. I know baseball season kind of gets going for the kiddos in the winter, and softball too. So all the stuff you need there. Maybe stuff you don't even know you need. You can get it at Academy Sports and Outdoors. Top brands and low prices, free in-store pickup or same-day delivery. And then, James, we're working with Academy in more ways than one, especially over on the Inside Texas Instagram page.
Yeah, so guys, I mean, we got a huge sponsor. It's big getting partnered with Academy. They're fueling the show, and we appreciate it, right? But as soon as we get a brand like that, we're wondering how we can help out the fans. Like, can we give the guys free stuff? That's what it's all about. And thankfully, Academy sent us 10 gift cards. They're gracious during the Christmas season. And so we're giving away 5 gift cards on Instagram. So if you want a chance to win a $50 gift card to go to Academy, they are the official SEC sponsor. So you can get all the flyest Texas merch there. Little Big League Chew on your checkout section. Get ready for Little League season. Parents and kids alike, I know you're going to love Academy. I did growing up. I still do today. My mom always dragged me there before Little League season. So it was great going to Academy as a kid. It still is now. And, I would love to have a gift card. I know you guys would too. So they're giving away 5 of them. Just go to our Instagram. We've got a little page or giveaway post up there. Tells you the rules, but basically go to Academy, use the hashtag Inside Academy, tag Inside Texas, tag Academy, and throw your horns up. Or even if you hate Texas but love Academy, still go, and you get a chance to win a $50 gift card. You can splurge it all on Big League Chew, get some new cleats for your kids, or maybe get a new baseball bat. I know that's what I would go for, basketball shoes. You can run on the treadmill. That place is like a jungle gym for little ones. But it's just as fun for adults, and it smells great, as Joe and I have talked about. It smells like an airport. It smells like new shoes, a new car. It smells like heaven. And the lights are beautiful. The smell's great. So go to Academy, guys, and tag us with that Inside Academy so you can get some free stuff. Get yourself a $50 gift card. Make your shopping a little easier. Or you just want to get something for yourself after Christmas. So we appreciate Academy. They fuel the show, and we want to give it back to you guys.
Who gave it back to Clemson was that defensive line, and that was impressive by Barron Sorrell. I think we've seen a lot of great play from Barron Sorrell. Sometimes he's just kind of not doing stuff that shows up in the stat sheet. He did stuff that showed up in the stat sheet last night: a sack, the deflection that led to Colin Simmons' interception. Fortunately, Texas didn't do anything with it, but it was still a big play. But he led it. It seems like you can pick a different defensive end edge every week, coach, and you'll be able to have someone just make an impact on the play.
Yeah, that's what I love about the defensive line up front. Like, each week is somebody else. Like, okay, we might not have heard much from Vernon Brodney and Alfred Collins this game, but then here comes Bill Norton. All right, here comes Barron Sorrell stepping up. Here comes Colin Simmons, who's, even though he's more consistent, but then you saw Ethan Burke out there. Like, somebody's always making a play. And you can tell the competition level in that room, like, everybody's biting at the chance to get an opportunity to go out there and actually play and make a play. And so Bill Norton, like you mentioned earlier, James, he doesn't play that much, but situational football, when you play short yardage and goal line, he shows up and shows out. And so when your numbers call, they actually show up and answer the bell, and I love that. That's just really total team defense and total buy-in. It speaks to the culture of that team, especially that room. And Coach Kenny Baker got all those guys. No matter how many snaps you get, when you get in, you make the most of your opportunity. So I love that.
James?
Yeah, I mean, I think Coach kind of took the words out of my mouth on that one. It's just kind of same thing. It's just, everyone's praising Bill Norton. I'm glad people are talking about him. The big boys, Lole, like it's just great to see all in all. And that even when Texas is not playing maybe their best ball, like we said, 400 yards for the first time on the season, situationally, they're really good. So yeah, that was just great to see that the goal line defense is legit. And typically when you can halt your team or halt your opposing team in the red zone and you're winning in the red zone, what did Joe say? What was it? 4 or 5 in the red zone, this game. So we saw Texas kind of get back on track, right? They were showing some flashes of last season for a couple games there with the red zone efficiency going down. And, but I think they got it was a get right game, which was nice to see on offense. So defense, I think that's always going to be something you can lean on. Maybe statistically not their best game, but they probably needed that, right? So, like we were talking about earlier, it's good test, and it'll definitely help them down the road. I think ASU, you'll give them an extra week, and they will prep for them. Like, oh, okay, we know that we can be had. Like, we can get God on defense, where maybe before they didn't feel like it. I think with Jordan Tyson being out, it's a bad recipe for ASU. All they're going to have to worry about is Scattaboo. We should see a great, resilient defensive stop or bounce back game from Texas on defense. So I look forward to seeing how this defense responds in the next couple weeks.
Coach, I know. Did you ever get to match up with Dillingham when you were in Las Vegas? Whether that was at Arizona State or maybe when he was the Oregon offensive coordinator, did y'all ever have to see him? And I guess that unless there's anything else y'all want to talk about on defense, maybe shift a little bit to the Sun Devils as we get ready to close out.
Yeah, didn't spend a lot of time. Didn't get to match up with Dillingham, even though him and Marion kind of close. So some of the same concepts apply. It's kind of what he runs and what we ran in the go-go. So, but I didn't get to match up with him at all.
It's going to be. I think injuries are really going to affect this game. Not only with Texas now seeing what's going to go on the offensive line, but now a little bit more with the injuries like you mentioned to Tyson. Levitt has been a really fun player to watch this year. And one of my favorite recruits, who I sometimes wish was still in Burnt Orange, is Xavier Alford. And that is someone who's had a big year, the 100-yard landlord over there. There's a lot of Texas influence. Heck, some of the starters for Arizona State, including Prince Dorba. I don't think Zach Swanson starts, but he definitely plays a lot. He talked a lot. That clip made some social media rounds. I completely understand where he is coming from with that. But James, this should be an interesting one, and I also think it's one of those games where Texas is probably going to have the crowd advantage because traveling from Phoenix to Atlanta is a little tough, and traveling from Austin or Dallas or Houston to Atlanta is a little bit easier.
Yeah, it should be a heavy burnt orange environment, unlike the last time we were in Atlanta, and let's hope for a better result too. But Arizona State, I've watched a lot of them because Scadaboo he's almost like very similar to Ashton Genty light, sort of. I mean, one of the best yards after contact. He's top 5 in yards after contact. Scadaboo is legit. If you watch that Big 12 championship game, they did an absolute splattering job on Matt Campbell at Iowa State. But Arizona State has been playing great ball. It's unfortunate Jordan Tyson got hurt. That team they are legit. Kenny Dillingham is a rising star. He's from Arizona State. He's from that area. He loves it. Like, he's kind of a mini Dan Lanning. He came from Dan Lanning. That's how fast this stuff happens. Dan Lanning's already getting the coaching tree. They're both in their 30s. But Dillingham is very similar to Dan Lanning. He's young. He's got great energy. He's actually recruiting pretty well. They're doing good in the portal over there. So Arizona State will be a good, someone just said, the wide receiver, Jake Smith.
Oh,
yeah, we can't forget him. But yeah, it'll be fun. And first time since – I don't know that game.
Oh, I remember that.
The first time they played, that was the 2007 Holiday Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody fumbled, or Arizona State fumbled, and the ball was rolling loose. That is Mac Brown's stepson reaching for a live football. Chris Jesse is his name. That may have been an Osweiler-led team, if I remember right.
No, Osweiler, he's younger than that.
Okay, it was somebody. I forget who it was.
I can't remember.
It was a good Arizona State team. They were ranked. That's the last time that they battled, and I don't think Mac Brown's stepson's going to be on the sideline. But little trip down memory lane for that one. And I'm not trying to denigrate him, but hey, man, I touched the live ball, so you're gonna have and that is basically the only memory a lot of people have from that game. A lot of fun. Go ahead, James.
Have they played other than that? Because we saw Clemson in Texas the first time. It's kind of crazy. These places are like relatively in similar regions, and they've never played Clemson. They're just now playing Arizona State. But
yeah, I looked it up, and like Arizona State's one of those things, and it was a program kind of like Texas Tech. Kind of in the old WAC. I think it was called the Border Conference. And, it was kind of – you had the Pac-10. And for a while it was the Pac-8. You had the Southwest Conference. And you had the SEC and the Big Ten. Like, those were the big dogs. And then after that point, there's still a bunch of teams start popping up in college football or in conferences. And then eventually Arizona State gets the Pac invite. But they weren't like a big deal in college football for a long time. And Rudy Carpenter, that's who that was. That was the quarterback. A lot of yards. And talk a little bit more about the Texas influence. You got Jamon Tapp, who's portaling out. Zach Swanson, defensive tackle, Xavier Alford, Prince Dorba, Jake Smith, Brian Carrington, and Troy O'Meary all made their way. They do the Texas to Tempe thing, and that's Carrington effectively trying to leverage recruiting connections within the state. So there's going to be a lot of familiarity despite these teams only facing off once. Should be a fun game. And then the winner of what is it? Who's on the line? Oregon and Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
So we'll get a little Big Ten rematch and
conference game in the Rose Bowl. That's what it's all about.
Hey, it's a Big Ten game in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
Golly, that's nuts to think about. Anything else? Playoff? Anything? I know we got this one question. Takario Davis entered the portal. Haven't seen much from him, and I would not be surprised if he just goes ahead and declares.
Right.
I feel like
I don't know why he wouldn't declare.
That's the one. And then, but anything else from the other playoff games? I know it's been a very lively discussion. Just ask Lane Kiffin and Alabama fans.
We're not going to talk about the bootleg UT.
Yeah, man. Ohio State came out wanting to prove a point, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They really, truly did. And watching that game, I'm like, okay. And I know I'm not supposed to look ahead past Arizona State. I'm like, who would you rather face? Because, man, Ohio State was on fire, last night. But then you look at maybe Dylan Gabriel versus, quarterback at Ohio State who, when the game's on the line in the fourth quarter, he kind of messes up. So luckily it didn't come down to that. But, man, I guess everybody's talking about do teams belong? Look at SMU. They didn't last. Indiana, I don't know. I know we got 2 years of this structure. I want to see how they're going to change it because I guess everybody doesn't deserve to be in after these weekend games.
But I'll say this, the 4-team playoff, every game was a blowout except for Baker Mayfield, Rose Bowl against Georgia, and then the last 2 years. The last 2 years of the 4-team playoff was the most competitive it had been with when TCU played Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State, and then last year, Texas, Washington, Michigan, Alabama. But so, this is just kind of what people do where they say, oh, they don't belong. In my opinion, you look at the total yards, Tennessee was the least competitive team, which is funny because, everyone's talking about Lane Kiffin chirping after every game. And then his last tweet was, let's go Vols, like the Tennessee takeover that was going viral because they had 30,000 Tennessee fans. Then Lane went 0 dark 30 on Twitter because, he was going SEC supremacist mode on there. And Tennessee did not help that narrative. But actually, SMU should have been more competitive if you watched that game. But Kevin Jennings had 4 turnovers. He missed a touchdown pass in the red zone, and then he threw 2 pick sixes, then another pick in the red zone. So, really, Penn State, of all the teams, I think yesterday or in the first round, Texas looked the best as a complete team in terms of their offense. Notre Dame or Texas looked the best in the first round. Penn State couldn't really move the ball against SMU if you watch that game until the end. And that was just an absolute splattering because of turnovers. Tennessee, though, got outgained 200 to 500 or something like Tennessee looked like they didn't even belong in that game, which was crazy. Ohio State, though, is favored against Oregon, and people might be shocked by that. But Ohio State, aside from Michigan, which is just a mental hurdle at this point, they don't even know how to play Michigan. Their one loss was that Will Howard run the clock out, losing by 1 on the road at the only undefeated team. So Ohio State still has the juice to win it all. I really would not want to face them if Texas gets by Arizona State.
Hey, they're all good at this stage.
Yeah.
Now that the bad teams have been defeated, and I think the big narrative about they didn't deserve it and stuff like that. Listen, you can make an argument when there's 1 win discrepancy. Like we did last year with Alabama and Florida State. But, man, 2 wins, even if you start bringing up strength of schedule and all that stuff, 2 wins is still 2 wins. And I know Alabama would probably beat SMU on a neutral field or in Dallas.
It depends what Alabama shows up, though.
and everybody talks about that strength of schedule and stuff like that. Well, that strength of schedule still put 3 losses on your resume. I know there's so many different nuances with it. But 1 loss difference, if Alabama was 10-2 and you have SMU at 11-1, yeah, sure, I'll hear some arguments for that. But 2 loss difference, it's harder for me to think about that just because the games aren't on the field is supposed to settle things. So, I have a funny story. I did a small little piece of guesswork that Indiana's team total was going to be below 3.5 points. And if there was one more stop by Notre Dame, I think I would have hit it. But I was not expecting much from the Hoosiers against that Notre Dame defense.
Same.
I will say, I think Notre Dame could win the whole thing. Like, I think that would be the fitting end of this year if the national champion had lost to Northern Illinois. But I actually really like Notre Dame over Georgia with Gunnar Stockton in. And Notre Dame, like, they're finally looking like that team we thought they could be, with Marcus Freeman stacking these classes on top of each other. It's just that loss against Northern Illinois. But since then, they have a 35 point differential. It's the best in the country. Like, Notre Dame is a legit team. That side of the bracket someone mentioned is kind of the easier side because it's Penn State, Boise, and Georgia without their quarterback, Notre Dame. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Notre Dame or, God forbid, Penn State. What would people do if Penn State made the national title? But it's going to be interesting, though. It is weird that we now got brackets like March Madness in college football. It still doesn't feel right to me. But
it's a fun Notre Dame team, especially with when Riley Leonard has it looking good. When he doesn't have it looking good, and you lose to Northern Illinois.
It was like Norris in the pocket, the way he was looking away from Indiana.
I'm trying to think. I know I had a schedule. Let me go through that real quick just to let people know what to maybe expect from the team this week. You've got there we go. All right, so press conference virtual tomorrow. Going to be off for Christmas in some form or fashion, at least from media responsibilities, and they fly out on Sunday, December 29th. So they'll have. I bet they get Christmas Eve, Christmas Day off, and then come back, start prepping. Then they'll have a few days. And hey, here's the other thing: like, you want to get the mental part down. But at this point in the season, you don't want to load up on the physical reps as much as possible. You got to play football, but you also got to get healed up and get ready for the next few games. So it should be a fun one at noon Central. I had to remember that Eastern time zone, noon Central, over in Atlanta. Anything else, James, Coach?
Shop at Academy.
Academy. I love
follow
that.
Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe. Get your girlfriend's phone and subscribe off hers. Grab your mom's phone. It's all free. Just subscribe. We're trying to make that push towards 20K. And follow us on social media.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Day After, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors here on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel. Make sure you give us a like. Make sure that you subscribe. Of course, head to InsideTexas.com. That is the place to go for all the coverage of not just the transfer portal. Texas is going to be active there. May have to wait for some teams to get knocked out or for some other things to happen, but expect Texas to be active in the portal. We'll have everything about the Arizona State Sun Devils queued up and ready to go this week. So, gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you for watching The Day After, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors, and we'll see you next time.